The Chicago Bulls take the court for the first time today after the All-Star break against the New York Knicks. What do the Chicago Bulls need to do to win? We're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're also going to talk about the return of Lonzo Ball, both on the court and his thoughts on his new contract. And we got waves and players out with injury and new signings. We got a lot to talk about today on Chicago Bulls Central. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Terry Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And yes, we got a game we're going to talk about. I'm excited to be able to talk basketball again, actual basketball on the court, even though the problems could actually just start with seeing this team on the court a little bit more, but we'll see that. But when the Bulls do take the court, one of their players will be returning in Lonzo Ball with a fresh contract extension as well. And when asked about his contract extension with the Chicago Bulls, he said this: the doctor being out here, how they dealt with the rehab process with me in the last couple of years, the relationship I have with the front office, the coaching staff, the young guys here. It kind of just all made sense for me to stay. That's what I wanted ultimately. They dealt with me through probably the toughest journey of my life, just trying to give back, man. They've been loyal to me. It's a mutual agreement. They wanted me. I wanted to stay. It wasn't that hard of a negotiation. So that's what he said yesterday when interviewed with the media. And here's what my takeaways from this, right, is that Lonzo Ball specifically saying that the team stuck with him throughout the toughest journey of his life, right? And I'm sure that was. While Lonzo's dealt with many injuries over the course of his fairly young NBA career, right? This was one that could have been career threatening, right? He's the first player to come back with this type of injury. He is. And so because of that, it really and the Bulls sticking by him, going through their process when he was ramping up, ramping back down, they had to shut him down again, things like that. Like, the Bulls stay patient. Now, so the credit, he had a guaranteed contract. It's not like they could have waived him off of it. A buyout, he had no incentive. That wasn't even really going to be an option there. But the Bulls did stick with him. And I like what he said towards the end of that as well, in that first quote there, the young guys here and the coaching staff, right? Even giving some shout outs to the Bulls medical staff, which is not something we hear a lot, but him specifically calling out that the young guys. And that's what Lonzo really has a chance to help mold here. When you look at the fact, now he has to stay on the court, make no mistake about it. But when you look at what we have here, right, we got young players that don't yet know how to create their own shot. It is what it is, right? Coby can create his own shot, but I'm not really counting him in that one. When you look at the Julian Phillips, the Dalen Terrys, right? Even Manas Busilis, who isn't really great at creating his own shot yet, right? Those type of things. He has a clear role here. And I think that's for a player like Lonzo, who's making his return back, having a clear and cut role out for you of what you need to do on the basketball court for your team is probably freeing in a sense. Now, it's basically a one-year deal, right? The Bulls can opt out of the deal in the second year. So it's really a one-year extension till the Bulls decide to pick up the second option, but it's at $10 million. The Bulls were reportedly looking to potentially move on from Lonzo at this year's trade deadline. So, when him saying that they wanted him back, yeah, I think when you look at and weigh the options of, okay, are we going to get second-round picks back, or are we going to, keep a player that is still, when you look at the advanced metrics, like when Lonzo Ball is on the court, he has one of the highest plus-minuses on the team right now. Again, he's not playing a whole lot of minutes at the beginning of the season. We'll see now that his minutes restriction, I believe the last that we've heard is that the minutes restriction is now up to 28 minutes, which is basically, when you look at it, that's basically a full game, right? Like, how that plus-minus maintains for him over that time. But, like, in the advanced analytics, they love Lonzo Ball, right? Now, Lonzo's had some shooting woes and some shooting issues. You can't deny that. I think there's going to be a little bit of that of coming back from as long as he was out, of course, right? But then when you look at Lonzo, a point differential of plus 12.6 when he's on the court. And then when you look at the points per 100 possessions, we're plus 4.8 points per 100 possessions when Lonzo's on the court than off the court. Effective field goal shooting percentage goes up by 2% when he's on the court, right? Or turnover rate goes down by 2% when he's on the court. This is a guy that positively impacts the game of basketball and just makes it easier. Defensively, we're giving up almost 8 points less per 100 possessions when Lonzo's on the court. Opposing teams are shooting the ball almost 4% worse when Lonzo's on the court, right? Their turnover percentage goes up by almost 2%. Lonzo is having a very big impact, really the most that he's had in his career, and that is because when he comes in there, the role that he has to play, you understand, right? And he's there to push the pace, create offense, rebound the ball, play solid defense, disrupt. And so having Lonzo here now, it's not a negative. And, do the Bulls still maybe look to move on from Lonzo? I think if they can get that first round pick, which was rumored that they may have been offered for Lonzo. Can't remember the team that would have offered. I think we ended up being Memphis, and it was Marcus Smart in the first round pick. I believe that's what it was. Don't quote me on that one. But if Lonzo has another if he finishes this season healthy and is healthy till next season around the trade deadline, I do think that the Bulls can recoup a first round pick back for him. But even more so than that, right? You got to look at it as this way: is Lonzo helping you more than he's hurting you? Or more? Here's the thing: does Lonzo help you more than potentially a couple of second round picks can help you? That's the question there. Right now, the Bulls have had some success in second round picks. Iowa's a second round pick. Arturas was on the front office that drafted Jokic as a second round pick. So it's not impossible to find value in second round picks. But I think when you're looking at developing guys, and the Bulls, let's say they do get a young big and Derek Queen or Kaman Malowik or a player like that in this upcoming draft, having guys like Josh Giddey, like Lonzo Ball, that can always feed them and help create in the half court for them, that's gonna be beneficial to the Bulls. So I'm glad that Lonzo's out there. I'm glad that he understands his role. I'm glad that he's excited and he wanted to come back here. And taking less than the mid-level exception, I think, is tremendous value. $10 million for what Lonzo Ball brings, even if he does end up missing 15 games a season or something like that, I think that's kind of worth it, right? So we'll see what overall it brings in the future for Lonzo. I know a lot of people are he signed the contract and he missed this time, right? He didn't play again a game since we lost Zach LaVine, I don't think. So, it is what it is there. But I'm glad that Lonzo's happy to be here. I'm glad that the Bulls are happy to be here. And I'm glad that Lonzo really understands what his role is. So, we'll see what that holds for the Bulls. Now, while we're talking about a player returning in Lonzo Ball, shout out to Zoe. Of course, Patrick Williams, at the same time that it was announced that Zoe is off the injury report, that Patrick Williams is going to miss tonight's game with a right quad injury. He was a full participant in practice both Tuesday and Wednesday, which is weird that he's going to be ruled out for a game on Thursday. But, I think ultimately, it just comes down to you want your guys healthy. And when it comes to Patrick Williams, you guys know I've turned on Patrick Williams like I was a guy that for the last handful of years, right? Since we got him, like, just wait. It takes time. Sometimes people are late bloomers, right? Give him more opportunity. But at this point now, until further notice, which I'm not saying that he still does not have time to change it, but until further notice, Patrick Williams is a role player. And that just is what it is. He's a role player on this team, a overpaid role player that can get you 8 to 10 points and can play some solid defense and can hit some threes for you. And that's perfectly fine, right? Because at this point now, I don't think many Bulls fans are hinging the starting future on Patrick Williams anymore. Now, I would like to see more Modest Buzelis and Patrick Williams minutes as the season goes on. I really would, right? I don't know if that ends up being as the starter, though, right? We'll see what happens there. Zoe is back too, so we'll see what happens with the starting lineup with that. Does Zoe move back into the starting lineup and Modest comes out? As Iowa comes out, you just bring Lonzo off the bench. We'll see what that holds for this team. But I think overall, like, Patrick Williams missing, it sucks because it's another opportunity taken away from him to continue to develop. But at this point, I'm happy to get, I wouldn't say I'd rather, but I am happy to get more opportunities for Julian Phillips, more opportunities for Dalen Terry as we finish this season to see what those guys can bring as well, right? Now, watch it end up being like THT and Zach Collins ends up stepping into that or something like that. But, we'll see what the future holds. But when it comes down to P. Will, man, disappointment is the name of the game for P. Will. It's unfortunate. I don't say that gloatingly either, right? Like I've said it before. I feel like fans are weird when they want to see a player on your team fail just so they can be right about something. That's not where I sit with P. Will, right? I would love nothing more than for me and my passive P comments and the nickname that I threw him there and all that to be proven false. I would love nothing more than come before you guys and say, P. Will's starting to put it together, y'all. P. Will's being consistent and putting it together, y'all. Oh, damn, P. Will's starting again, y'all. I would love to be able to say that. But as it stands right now, P. Will is a disappointment at the number 4 overall pick, but he still has a chance. And I know people don't like to hear this, right? But he still has a chance to be a contributor as a role player for this Bulls team, especially in the phase that we are now, right? This Bulls team isn't going to win a lot of games anytime soon. So because of that, I mean, he has still opportunity to show that he can be more than that, but yeah, we'll see what the future holds for P. Will, man. I do think that as the Bulls continue to move on, get younger, draft players, that window for P. Will, and the opportunities for P. Will are going to get less and less. Y'all remember at the start of the season, I did say that if P. Will loses the starting position this year, I don't know if he gets it back, right? Now, at that time, of course, I was talking about modest. I thought Julian Phillips would have a much better year this year as well. The second season, that hasn't come to fruition. But there's still those guys that are waiting to get those minutes from P. Will. And with Billy Donovan not afraid to play 4 guards, we'll see what the future holds for P. Will, man. Let's hope that he can get together, speedy recovery, so he can finish the rest of this season. At that point, when he comes back, there'll be 26, 25 games left. Let's hope we can finish those 25 games strongly, and then we can see what happens in the offseason, right? But with that said, the Bulls are getting back on the basketball court finally. After over a week out of basketball, we get to talk about Bulls basketball again, and the Bulls are entering a difficult stretch, starting off, of course, with the New York Knicks tonight, where we're going into New York. We have a game then home against Phoenix. Then we face Philly, and then the Clippers, the Raptors, the Pacers, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Orlando Magic, the Miami Heat. We're back to Indiana, and that takes us to mid-March, right? Brooklyn and Houston, if you want to take it all the way to March 15th. That's the majority of the rest of your season right there, right? That's about half your games left you have for the rest of the season. Season ends April 13th. So the Bulls are going to have a difficult stretch here. They have the 16th most difficult schedule remaining in the NBA, so that's right outside of the top half of it. And it starts tonight with the New York Knicks, and this is not going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. The New York Knicks have the 5th best net rating in the entire NBA. They're the 2nd best offensive rating in the entire league on the season at 121. And while not elite, they're no slouches defensively, 18th defensively in the NBA. And when you have the efficient offense that they do, being around that area in defense is solid enough, right? Of course, I know that they want to be better. I think that they thought that they would be better with the Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, and with OG Anunoby and what they're going to be able to do with the wings there. But for what it's worth, the 3rd in true shooting percentage, 3rd in effective field goal shooting percentage, 6th in rebounding percentage in the NBA as well, right? This is a team that goes out and gets it done. And they have the 4th best record overall in the NBA. So this is a team in the New York Knicks that you got to be prepared for, because they're coming in trying to take away what you do best and just frankly outscore you. Now, we know that Tom Thibodeau, we are very familiar with Tom Thibodeau. He is a coach that is going to try to take away what you do best. And, while the New York Knicks are not going to have or be that team that has the sustained, amazing defense, this is a team in which the Bulls, because of how much we rely on pace and shooting, that with how well they rebound the ball, both defensively and offensively, the Knicks are the 8th best offensive rebounding team in the league. With that part of it is that you're going to have to look at just being efficient, because they're coming in to try to take away what you do best. And if they're able to do that, it could be a difficult night for the Chicago Bulls. If the Knicks can force the Bulls to be a half-court team, it's going to be ugly, right? So the Bulls are going to have to rebound really, really hard in this game, because if you allow the Knicks to out-rebound you, that's going to take away fast break opportunities for you. That's going to put them in a place to get second chance opportunities. You cannot do that, right? And the Bulls' defense has been 27th on the season so far. Now, over the last 5 games, we've been 29th in defensive rating, so we've actually taken a dip down from where we were overall in the season. And so the Bulls can get cooked tonight. And you look at the pressure that they're going to be able to put on the Bulls, both out on the perimeter and with Karl-Anthony Towns, who's cooking right now. I think, as I saw, he's like 4th in the MVP ladder. He's not going to win MVP, but he is cooking when he's on top of Jalen Brunson and those players being there. I think they already announced that OG Anunoby is going to be missing tonight's game, so the Bulls may not have to worry about that. But this is not a game that the Bulls can take lightly, and that's just what it comes down to. If the Bulls get caught slipping tonight, it's going to be ugly, and it's going to keep being ugly. And I can see this game completely getting away from them. Plus, we're at the Garden, right? So we're not at home, which, I don't know, maybe that works in the benefit of the Bulls. I just looked at it. Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, of course, Mitchell Robinson are all listed as out tonight. So, the Bulls have that opportunity. They're missing some of their perimeter defenders. Let's hope that they can be ready for that, because if they're not, hey, this is going to be an ugly, ugly, ugly game. And, maybe that's by design, right? I said it before that what we're looking at now with the Bulls is not really about wins, right? If they can get wins, great, right? I'm not saying that they should come into any game aiming for a loss. I know my pro tankers are going to say, Hayes, why are you saying that? But, when it comes down to it, this is a Bulls team that is going to have some very, very big difficulties, right? And deficits, right? And it's about development. It's about still evaluation. We're still trying to evaluate a lot of the pieces that we have here and how their long-term fit's going to be, because the Bulls got some tough questions that they need to answer this offseason, right? Of course, Josh Giddey's extension, then how the Josh Giddey extension coincides with your future that you see with Coby White, right? That's a big one. Dosunmu's extension is coming up down the pipeline. Of course, you want the development of Modest Bucilis. They're trying to evaluate players on the bench, and Trey Jones and Kevin Huerter. Oh, Jesus, Kevin Huerter minutes. Kevin Huerter minutes may be a bit of a pain. But outside of that, right, like, we got things that we're looking for and players that we're trying to evaluate. So to start off the second half of the season for the Bulls, we'll see where we're going to go. Still very guard-heavy team, and I don't really see that changing. Like the video that I talked about the other day, 12 of the Bulls' 15 players on the main roster are all under contract next year. So, yeah, a lot's going to stay the same here unless we see heavy moves by Arturas Karnisovas in the offseason, which I don't necessarily expect, but hey, I'd love to be surprised by. And we'll see what the future holds for this team, man. Overall, I'm glad to have Bulls basketball back and just to evaluate the team, right? It's going to be tough. I said it before. We're going to get through it together, and that's part of the reason why I have this channel, right, is that we can get through and talk about the things, difficulty, and for my Bulls fans that only want to hear things positive, I tell y'all this may not be the show for you for the remainder, for a little while here, because we're going to be honest with the team, right? At the same time where I was saying, hey, this Bulls team is not good. They suck. And people were like, well, damn, are you really even a Bulls fan? If you think that, it's like, yeah, I'm a Bulls fan, because guess what? We actually indeed do suck. So I'm not breaking new earth or new ground there. So, it's a lot that the Bulls, that they have a lot till they get back to the place of being a consistent winning team, right? And what we do in the draft, and we're going to start kind of ramping up draft probably around, because March Madness, we'll probably start doing a little bit more draft content then, as far as like performances. I'll probably try to do like a ladder of players that I think should be on the Bulls board and talk about their performances in the NCAA tournament. So keep on the lookout for that. That'll be fun to watch as it goes on. But overall, like, the best thing about this time period that we are in for the Bulls is that expectations can be removed. And I know that's difficult for some fans because, of course, some fans can't get to the point of realizing and saying, hey, this team is just going to be bad. And I understand that. I'm not saying that as a knock to you, right? But it's about development again. And there is some fun in seeing young players figure it out, right? And for those that weren't around at the beginning of like the Kirk Heinrich era, right, with Kirk and Ben and those guys as they were figuring it out, that was a fun era. If you go back and look at it, yeah, they lost some tough games there, right? They got their ass kicked some nights. But it was a fun era in seeing those guys figure it out, right? They were also well coached, but, that's a story for another day. And I think as we go forward and keep seeing how Ayo and Coby and Matas and maybe even P. Will and Julian and Dalen and these guys really figure it out, right? And blossom, Josh Giddey, right? And he can continue to kind of round out and work on some things in this game. There could be some fun to that. Whoever the Bulls get with top 10 in that, it's going to be fun with, right? But I think that the expectation of winning basketball, if you can remove that, there's some fun in having in the discussion and the evaluation period of what this team's going to be at for the next couple of years. That's my personal opinion. I know that everybody is all down for that, and I understand that. Like, I just look at basketball different. Like, I love the sport of basketball, right? And I think sometimes when you can look at the sport and the development process of teams, now you got to have the right players, right? So that goes back to AK and Eversley drafting the right guys to get them in here, and that's a different story, right? But if you get those guys that are blossoming and developing and that are showing, hey, we actually have a future here, there can be some excitement even when your team's not expected to win a lot of games. But tonight against the Knicks, we're kicking it off, getting back on the basketball court, which is really, really fun to actually talk about basketball, even if they do some shit that pisses me off. Is going to be fun to talk about. After tonight's game, we have Friday off. We go back Saturday against Phoenix, where we play at home. And then we got next week, we got 4 games next week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, all next week. So we're going right back to a tough schedule. So make sure you guys stay in tune with us for that. We're the number one spot for everything Bulls. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.